In this video, we will discuss all possible ways in which course videos are pirated and then prevention methods to prevent this video piracy. So we will discuss preventing video download, screen capture and preventing password sharing in this video in a bit detail. I am co-founder of VideoCypher, a secure video hosting startup that helps prevent online piracy. So firstly, we should look at the problem in a bit detail. How are the course videos being pirated? What are the common mechanisms by which people are downloading or getting access to the videos illegally? The first and most common is password sharing. Students tend to share password and their learning account to other people. Inside password sharing, again there are various levels. For example, there is a casual password sharing where people just share between their friends or relatives in a limited environment. Secondly, people might share a password to somebody at a lower cost than the course price and gain monetary benefit out of it. So it is a kind of a commercial password sharing and it is illegal. Then the third is password theft. In a case where account credentials from a site or an app are hacked and stolen from users, then since sometimes people use same password across different platforms, people get access to a lot of content and they also share passwords and sell passwords in the open. So apart from password sharing, there are other methods like video downloading. As many would have known, there are a lot of free tools and downloaders like IDM, Video Download Helper, SS YouTube and many others, which allows videos to be downloaded in raw files and people can share it anywhere. Then if the content is not downloadable, but sometimes people can try to screen capture the content. So screen capture is also a major form of piracy. Then the fourth mechanism is like it is not a mechanism, but it is like a copyright violation, which happens after step 2 and 3. Sometimes people can just do video download or screen capture and share it within their limited circle. That is still like somewhat fine, though it shouldn't happen. But the worst thing which can happen is that somebody downloads or screen capture the content and then they edit out your like copyrights and put their own brand and then resell it. So it is a major revenue loss and copyright infringement. So password sharing, video downloading and video screen capture, these are the primary methods from which the content is pirated. And now we will look into that how each of this can be prevented in an online course. So firstly, coming to the preventing download of videos. So the first and foremost step which businesses and people, the course creators think is preventing the download of video using encryption. So there are certain common open source standards on encryption by technologies named AES 128 encryption, HLS encryption or RTMP encryption, which are available to secure the content. So these encryption technologies are typically like more secure than just streaming a normal file. So they are more secure as compared to YouTube, but they are not fully secure. Since somebody like YouTube is not encrypted and AES and HLS encryption is encrypted, so it provides one level of security. But the thing is, the key exchange mechanism in these technologies is very open and thus it can be hacked. When I say of key exchange mechanism, if I have to explain more, I can tell this by this example. The content is actually sitting somewhere on the server and then finally it has to play inside a player. So in the case of YouTube, it directly comes from the server to player, not encrypted. Now when somebody puts an encryption like HLS encryption or AES encryption, then the video is coming from server to player in an encrypted method. But there is a key which is used to decrypt the content. Ultimately, the video has to play inside the player in a normal way. So there is a key which is used to decrypt the content, and in technologies like AES, HLS and RTM encryption, this key exchange mechanism is quite vulnerable and it is somewhere open in the network. So ultimately people, hack or softwares are able to grab the key and they are able to get the final raw video. So that is why though AES and HLS and RTMP encryption provide some bit of security, but it is not fully secure and it is open to hacks and downloads. Now how it can be prevented? So there is a second like layer of security over an encryption which is called as GRM encryption. So DRM here means digital rights management. So these are essentially protocols from Google and Apple which provide more security in terms of key exchange, and it provides hard security against video download. So when I say Google and Apple's DRM, so there are two primary DRM which are called Google Widevine DRM, and the second is Apple Fairplay DRM. Now, how these DRMs can be more secure than the standard technologies? So the reason is that since Google and Apple have a more control over the system. So when I say system, it can be an OS level control in case of an Android phone, or a hardware level control in a case of a Mac laptop or say iOS phone, or it can be a basic browser level access in terms of say a Chrome browser. So either on browser level, on OS level, or on hardware level, Google and Apple have some bit of control over the majority systems, and that is why they can higher secure the key exchange mechanism, and they can secure the content streaming at a much higher level as compared to the open source standard technologies. So Widevine is the technology from the Google, and it typically plays on Google Chrome, Firefox, Edge browsers on desktop, and in Android it plays on Android Chrome, Android apps, and Android TV. The company which I am part of, VideoCypher, it is a Google Widevine implementation partner. So we have a default Google Widevine integrated in our product, and we provide it to all customers. Similarly for Apple, it is called Fairplay DRM. Fairplay DRM is typically used for iOS Safari browser or Mac Safari browser or an iOS app. And VideoCypher also integrates Apple Fairplay DRM for its customers to secure content on iOS and Mac at the highest level. So this was about DRM encryption as an added layer of security. And one point I would like to add is this is the same technology, the DRM encryption, which is used by people like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hotstar to secure their main movie releases. So this is the highest level of security which is available in the market. So it is, but it is something to do to be able to integrate it for a course. So so you will understand that Netflix or Amazon can do it in house. But if you are a course creator and if you don't have the huge technology team or of huge money, then how will you integrate Google Widevine or Apple Fairplay DRM Apple in your system? So that is where VideoCypher comes into play. We provide a default integrations for Google Widevine and Apple Fairplay, so that you as a course creator don't have to worry about this encryption protocols and integration. Technically, it is taken care by VideoCypher. Apart from DRM encryption, there are other methods to prevent video sharing. So one is domain restriction. So ideally your video shouldn't play, the video URL shouldn't play outside your website or app domain. So that is ensured. And then there is URL authentication. So when I say URL authentication, so if the URLs are generated dynamically via an API, then the URLs can be generated in such a manner that each URL on a playback is a temporary URL which expires after a certain bit of time. And there can be more authentication parameters to these URLs for a higher security. So domain restriction and URL authentication is also an added level of security on the URLs level to prevent video sharing. Then, okay, so if you use DRM encryption, you are able to control downloads pretty much. Now, what about screen capture? If the content is of too much value, then people still try to screen capture the content. So, in case of mobile apps like Android app or an iOS app, if it is natively built, then integrations with DRM in the way VideoCypher provides, there is screen capture block possible. Okay, so we provide screen capture block in apps. In case of browser, there are certain limitations. For example, in a Mac Safari, we can provide screen capture prevention, but in say a Chrome browser on a laptop, we cannot provide screen capture prevention. So in certain cases, it might be blocking screen capture, but in certain cases, it might be in many cases, it will be open to screen capture. The screen capture prevention on desktop as of now, in particularly in the primary browsers called Chrome and Firefox, it is not much implemented in the market. The way technologies are there in the video technology market currently to block screen capture on all laptop or desktop Chrome, Firefox, it is currently not possible. So in such cases where the screen capture block is not totally possible, like there is a feature called dynamic user specific watermark, which is to discourage screen capture. So if a video is playing, then the viewer's user ID, email ID, IP address, etc., or even a phone number can be watermarked over the video. And if you determine and change the color, transparency, speed of movement of this watermark, then you can ensure that the video, that the watermark from the video cannot be easily removed using a video editing, and at the same time it doesn't distract the user. So if a watermark is at a single corner somewhere else, somewhere in the video, then some people can just remove it using video editing. But if the watermark is moving, then it is very difficult to remove the watermark from a video where the watermark is moving. But the problem with a moving watermark is it can be distracting. So that is why VideoCypher provides customizations in terms of transparency, size, color, speed of movement, visibility percentage, so that that watermark can be kept very light and not visible all throughout the video to have the best viewer experience. So this was mainly about preventing video download and screen capture and video URL sharing. Then other than direct video piracy means, there are other means in which people can cause loss of revenue to your course through piracy. So that is one is obviously, as we have discussed, is password sharing. So there are typical things to do in terms of password sharing. So firstly, you can prevent multiple logins at the same time. If you are using some site based or built on say WordPress, then there are plugins which can block multiple logins at the same time. So there is a plugin called Prevent Concurrent Login plugin on WordPress, which can prevent concurrent logins on a WordPress website. But if you are coding your own website, then you have the more control over backend, and then you can track the logs of the user, and you can ensure at your end that two users are not logging in, like two devices are not logging in from the same user login. So you can do that on your side. Second can be OTP based login. So if you put an element like OTP on a mail or a phone number while logging in, then it provides additional bit of security, because if somebody then has to share his or her course access, then they have to again and again provide OTP, which is quite an effort to do. So that creates a burden, creates a barrier in terms of password sharing. Then one a good practical approach which we suggest to our customers, and which many of our customers do, is restricting video watch time. So the video watch time should be restricted to a larger limit to prevent misuse or overuse. To give an example, suppose you have 50 hours of content. Now if somebody is watching it, you can limit it that they can only watch for 100 hours of watch time. So 50 hours of content, 100 hours of watch time, it means they can probably watch it 2 times fully for all the content. So it is good to limit this, because even if they share password, etc., they wouldn't be able to overuse it. Okay, and they also know that it has a certain limitation on total watch time, so they will themselves not share their password, because if somebody overuses the course, then their access will be restricted. So that is video watch time restriction is a thing which requires certain bit of coding at a video technology level and also at the user membership level. But if you are building your own site in your own code, then it is totally recommended to do this. Then you can do SSO logins. So then it is for example, people wouldn't share their Gmail password with some other people, but they can share the password of a course. So if you provide SSO login, so overall it decreases the chances of password sharing. So this was mainly about password sharing protection. So I will just give a summary of all protection measures we discussed. So first thing was preventing video download, primarily via DRM encryption technologies. Then preventing URL or domain sharing, that has to be done via domain and URL level authentication. Then preventing password sharing, which can be done by implementing login based restrictions and watch time based restrictions. And then the preventing screen capture, which can be done by blocking screen capture wherever possible, particularly in mobile apps, and then a user based watermarking to discourage screen capture to a larger extent. So the company which I work for, videocipher.com, it provides all of the above. So there are various integrations possible in terms of how you are creating your website or app. If you are on a WordPress site, if you are on a third-party platform like Teachable, or if you have coded your site on your own using a language, say PHP, Node, React, then there are different level of integrations available via API, plugins, or iframes. You can use those integrations and use all the features which I mentioned to be able to restrict piracy. So hope overall our explanation was helpful. So even if you are not looking to use VideoCypher, but the general technologies and the methods which I explained, it can be useful if you are able to implement it on your own as well. Okay.